let's move on with our blackjack example using our player. And in the last section, what we did is we created an initializer. We've created a print method for our player, and we've also defined the set score method. And so maybe two more things that we want to add is we want to be able to hit a card. So we want to be able to take a new card, and we want to be able to play a new game. So we kind of want to reset. Now, of course, there are more things that we can do later too. For example, splitting and all that stuff. But let's just keep it simple right now, and let's just stick with the basics. So the next thing that we want to add is we want to be able to hit a card. So we're gonna, and if you don't know what hit means just take a new card. So that's what we're gonna be able, what we want to do. So we're gonna define a new method, and we're gonna call this method hit, and we're gonna open and close parentheses. Inside here, we're gonna need to put the self, like always, and what we're also going to have here is we're just going to have the card. So what we're going to do is if we hit, we're going to pass a card with the hit, and then we have our colon here. And all that we're going to do in this hit function is to our self.hand, we're just going to append our card. So what are we going to do? We're going to take our self.hand, and to it, we're going to append, and all we want to do is just append the card. That's all our hit function is going to do. Well, it actually needs to do one more thing. It needs to set the score again. So what we need to do is we can change our self.score, and we can make that equal to set score. So after we added this card, all we're doing is we're just going to recalculate our score. And it needs to be the self.setScore, because the set score is part of the class, so it's one of the class methods. So we actually need to access the self part here. Since our card is part of the input here from the method, we don't need to access the self because the card is not part of the player, so it's not a property of the player. It's just something that's passed in the function. But this set score method is actually part of our player, so we've defined it here. And so to access it, we also need the self in front of here. But yeah, so this is kind of all that we need to do when we hit a card is we just need to see, well, we need to add the card to our hand. And then all we need to do is we need to reset our score. So this is all that we're doing with the hit. So maybe if we run this, or maybe if we just user player1 dot hit, inside here we're going to put the card that we're going to hit. So what we're going to put inside is we're going to put inside, let's put inside a king, and then let's print out player 1 again. So if we print out player 1, remember we access this overwritten print function here, and we print out our current hand plus our score, and we show that up. So yeah, let's just run that and let's see what we get. Let's make sure everything works. So this is the output that we're getting before. Maybe we can remove some of the print statements like this, and let's just rerun our code now. So first we see our shuffled deck. We're not really dealing with that right now, so we're not really doing anything with our deck, but we still see it. It's still being shuffled every time, and every time it's different that we see here. And so our player starts with the 3, the 7, and the 5, and their score is 15. And now the player hits a card, and their score is 25. So we've busted technically, but we haven't really taken care of that either. We just kind of see our score. So this is all that the hit method does, and we see it's working nicely now. We're adding a new card here, and our score is also being recalculated. So maybe let's also hit an ace, player.1, and then here we're going to hit an ace. So we're hitting 2 cards, we're hitting a king and an ace. Let's just make sure that we get the extra 1 here rather than the 10, rather than the 11 that we want. So yeah, we see we get the 26 here. That's great, that's exactly what we need. If we take this king away, for example, so if we comment out this player hitting a king and just put it in an ace, and if we run it again now, we see that we get 16, which is great too. So we get the 3, the 7, which makes 10, plus the 5, which makes 15. And now if we added 11 to it, that would give us 26. But since 26 is greater than 21, our ace is going to count as a 1. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to subtract 10, and we get the 16 here. Now if we hit another ace, for example, player 1.hit, and we get another ace like this, we see that our score is increased to 17. So we're not really running into any issues here. So that's great. And we're also not dealing with this overcounting issue. So we've kind of taken care of everything, or at least that's how it looks like now. So that's really great. Everything seems to be working here. We didn't run into an error, so our hit seems to be doing the job nicely. So the last thing that we want to do maybe is we want to create kind of a reset function. So we want to be able to, once we've played our game and stuff, we want to be able to reset our hand and our score without having to destroy the player and then recreate it or something like that, or just create a new player. So we don't want to need to change players every time. We want to be able to reset our score. So we're going to create a method called def, not def, we're going to define a method, and we're going to call this method play. And what play is going to do is it's going to take in a new hand. And we need to put the self in here too. We can't forget the self. So we always want to refer to the self because this is a method that belongs to our player. So we need to put the self in there. And what our play is going to do is we're going to get a new hand. And what's going to happen is not our player hand, our self.hand is going to be equal to the new hand. And our self.score is going to be equal to, well, what is it going to be equal to? We're going to need to reset our score, so it's going to be equal to our self.setScore. So we're just resetting our score with this new hand. And let's try that out too. Let's say player1.play, and now we give player 1 the cards. Let's just give them an ace and a king, so a nice winning hand. And let's print out player 1 again to make sure everything still works, and we've reset our hand and we've got the working score and everything. So if we run this, we see we have the 375 here with the score 15 from the beginning. Then we hit 2 aces and we get 17, and then we play, so that resets our hands and it gives us an ace and a king because that's what we put in here, and our score is now 21. So cool. We've created this, or we've implemented this nice hit method. We've implemented this nice play method. Yeah, maybe one more thing that we want to be able to do is we want to be able to bet money, or we want to be able to set our money. So what are we going to do? Well, we are going to need to be able to create a bet method. And so we should think about first, well, what do we want our bet method to do? So what we're going to do is we're going to bet some money in the beginning, and if we win, then what we're going to do is we're going to double that money, or whatever it is that we do. If we get a blackjack, we're going to do it by 1.5 times, so we're going to get 250% of our original value. But what we're going to do is we're going to need to kind of take care of this betting. So we can kind of change this around later, but let's just start off with with 2 simple methods. And we're going to remove these later and make a more general bet method that takes care of everything. But then we also need to put it in all of here. But first, let's just start off easy with pay. So we're going to define a pay. So this is going to be kind of, they put out the money. And we're going to reference self here because we're in our class. And we're going to put in amount here. And all that it's going to do is it's going to take our self.money, and it's going to decrease it by the amount we paid. So that's all our pay is going to do. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a win method. So we're going to create def, we're going to win, and we need to reference self here, and we're going to put in the amount that we won. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our self.money, and to it we're going to add the amount that we won. So all we made is two really simple methods. One that pays, so this is kind of when you start your round and you put in your bet, and if you win, then you get back the double amount. And again, we're probably going to change this later to be something more general so that the bet actually gets taken care of internally. But right now this seems to do the job, but when we get to a more kind of complete and complex game, then we'll notice that we probably want to change this to make handling everything easier, or else we're going to need to save the bet somewhere else. But it'd probably be better if each player remembers how much they bet, and then if they win or if they lose, the bet either gets doubled and they get it back as their money, or they lose their bet. So later we're also going to create a self.bet variable, but it's not that apparent to us right now that we're going to need it, so we're just going to stick with these two simple pay and win methods. So what we can do, for example, is we can take our player 1, and to it we can call pay, so they're going to bet, and let's have them bet 20, and then let's just print out our player 1 dot money, so just to see how much money we have left. And then let's say our player 1 wins 40. So they paid 20, then we see how much money they have, and then they win. And then let's just print out the player 1 money just to make sure that everything works here too. And let's just run this, and we see, well, this is our output from before, and we've also got this. This is kind of starting the new round. And then after we pay 20, we see that our player 1 has 80 money, and then after we win 40, we see that we have 120. So that seems to work pretty well too. If we put this, if we cut this, and if we put this in front of our play, we also want to make sure that, and maybe we print the player 1 money afterwards too. So print player 1 money. We just want to make sure that if we play again, our money isn't going to change. So we're going to start a new round, but we're not going to kind of reset our money. And it shouldn't do that because in our play method here, we didn't actually touch any of the money, but let's just make sure, just in case. And we see here that first we have 80 then after we pay, and then we win, we get a 120. And we see our hand kind of here after we started the new game, and we see that we still have 120 money. So there are no units attached to this, so you can kind of choose what units you want to have, but we'll just keep it unitless right now. But yeah, so this seems to work quite nicely. We've got some kind of general methods set up right now that work pretty well, at least initially. When we make this game more complicated, we're probably going to need to revisit some of these methods and make them a bit broader so that they can kind of take care of more things, because otherwise our programs are just going to get too complex and we're going to need to remember a lot of things outside. But we want to make sure that our player does most of the stuff themselves, and when we actually play our game, we only need to call a couple of functions like hitting, and maybe what happens to their bet, and maybe playing another game or something like that. So we want to keep it as simple as possible in our game, and we want to make sure the player handles a lot of the stuff themselves so that we don't have to do a lot of extra programming when we actually program our Blackjack game.